Welcome back, viewers. It's James Kalm, your half-assed reporter, the guy on the bike. And we are on the Lower East Side. We're gonna take some close views of some artwork. But first, we have a special shout out to Frederick Monk, whose Netflix documentary, Why Did You Kill Me?, started streaming April 14th, and it's been trending between 2 and 3 in the United States. Congratulations, son. We're gonna run in here to SHIN Gallery and see the show. The Modernist Vanguards, John Graham, Willem de Kooning, and Arshile Gorky. Stay tuned. Hello. Well, we'll come in and do a cursory sweep over the installation. I heard about this show a couple of weeks ago and was very excited. I think John Graham is possibly one of the most influential and yet unsung artists slash curators, art theorists, mucky mucks on the New York scene. And I thought this would be interesting, especially kind of in tandem with the couple of historic shows we've seen recently. One of them was the Man Ray Pacabia show at Vito Schnabel, and then the Lee Krasner show at Paul Kasman. And in a way you could say that John Graham was part of all that whole scene. Well, we'll start out here. This is untitled, Still Life with Saw. 1925, oil on canvas, 14 by 17. John Graham was quite an interesting character. He was actually a Polish-Ukrainian whose real name was Ivan Gratianovitch Dombrowski, and I think he might have been even like some minor aristocrat, and studied law and was a cavalryman in the Tsar's army. This is Abstract Still Life with Bird. He was actually captured by the Bolsheviks and held in prison for a while, and fled with his wife and kid and ended up initially in Baltimore. I think both of these pieces you could say was kind of riffing on Picasso's Cloisonné period. Anyway, he eventually came to New York and studied at the Art Students League with John Sloan, who was one of the leaders of the Ashcan School. While he was there, he met people like Stuart Davis and I think maybe Arshile Gorky at the League. This is Plaza Observatory, 1927. Well, as I alluded to in the initial walkthrough, Graham probably was better known as a curator, as an operator, as a theorist, and a kind of person that would make connections and kind of work the scene. This is one of the pieces that really got me in here. This is Arshile Gorky, titled Enigma, Composition of Forms on a Table. 1928, 1929. Well, like Gorky was also an immigrant from Eastern Europe. He was Armenian, and he kind of reinvented himself. I think his name was something like Andonian, and he took on the name of a well-known, I believe he was a Russian novelist, Gorky. I often talk about liking chunky paint, and this is a good example. Although some people just slather on the paint and that's it. This has all been layered on over a year-long period. And he really was an apprentice of Picasso for many years. Then he went on and kind of spent a lot of time looking at Miro. These are two egg paintings. This one is by John Graham, 1928. Oil and sand on canvas. Coffee cup. This is 19 by 25. Well, as I said, Graham came to New York, went to school at the Art Students League, and then started supporting himself as a kind of a private art dealer, and he spent a lot of time traveling back and forth between Paris and New York, and I guess also went farther east and visited Moscow, saw some of the modern art collections there. This is the Willem de Kooning painting. It's untitled, Still Life with Egg and Potato Masher, 1928, 1929. And this is also oil and sand on canvas. Okay, now this is kind of an interesting piece. Self-portrait, 1923, 20 by 15. And you can sort of pick out some of the influence of maybe the German expressionists, especially with his blue lines. Franz Marc, maybe. Some of the Blau Riders, the Brücke. Okay, now we've got some interesting pieces. We'll start out with this. This is another de Kooning. Untitled, 1954. House paint on wooden toilet seat. Well, this is maybe I shouldn't call it a mythical piece, but a well-known, well-celebrated piece. Evidently, de Kooning used to go to a lot of parties. He lived out in the Hamptons, and I think someone had a party that, oh look, they've got the little copper wires to make sure people are not opening up the lids. Anyway, somebody invited him to paint the toilet seats at the outhouse, and this is what he produced. Talking about this is oil and enamel on wood, and I'm not going to ask what the burnt umber is. This is Arshile Gorky, Mother and Child, 1937. 47 by 36. This could be one of the most unusual Gorkys I've ever seen. Mother and Child, 1937, oil on canvas, 47 by 36. And, well, if you look at the way that this is handled, it almost looks like a painting on plaster. It's like a fresco, and there's been a lot of scraping. And he actually kind of leaves this section over here, so it looks like the plaster is peeled off. Although Gorky always did have a wonderful, very confident line, very elegant line. Okay, now we've got a corner of some very unusual, interesting, well, what are they calling this? Pieces in the style of Arshile Gorky, provenance of the Allen Stone Gallery. So this is untitled 1947, oil and gouache on canvas. 42 by 37. Well, I guess it says something about your fame and notoriety when they exhibit your attributed work, although they can't exactly say that it was you, it was in your style. And I think the interesting part is that Allen Stone was collecting these. I think the last major show of Graham that I saw was at Allen Stone's, and I wrote a piece in the Brooklyn Rail about it. Maybe I'll attach that at the bottom. It's untitled drawing in Gorky style, pencil and pastel, 24 by 18. Yeah, the more I look at this, the more questionable it would be, because this just is not quite as, the lines are not as fluid as most of the Gorkys that I've seen from that period. Untitled 1947. Well, this is interesting, and I'm always looking at paintings. I love things that have this sense of age, that look like they've been stored somewhere. And, well, this seems to have a little bit more of the flowing kind of sensual lines that Gorky was known for, but I'm sure that if there was no doubt about the provenance and the authenticity of these, that they would definitely be called Gorkys. Untitled. This is a double-sided drawing, 17 by 17. Okay. Let's go into the last gallery. Subtle Standing Nude, 1931, oil on canvas. Well, one of the reasons that I wanted to document the show and maybe talk a little bit about John Graham is that I think he kind of represents a type of personality in the art world that didn't really get the kind of recognition maybe that he should have as a painter. But, and you could debate whether or not he was a master, at least with some of his early work. But he was someone that organized shows, met collectors. He wrote a book, I believe it was called Systems and Dialectics of Art, something like that, about the theories behind abstract art. He even came up with the term of minimalism for a painting style he was doing in the early 30s, although the minimalists from the 60s probably wouldn't consider it minimalism. Actually, I like this little piece. It's titled Harlequin 1941. And, well, one of the things that I'm interested in is always the community, the field of creative people. And that field is made up, it's like woven of individuals. Each one of those threads is a person, and they all have a lifeline, and they get woven together into a fabric that becomes an art community, and eventually that becomes art history. This is titled Warrior on Horseback. I was kind of skimming through some articles on Graham today, and they said that, well, he was a cavalry officer in the Tsar's cavalry, and was very well educated, but came to New York and couldn't find himself a job doing anything except giving people riding lessons. So his probably feelings and paintings of horses should have a certain amount of accuracy. It's titled Portrait of a Woman, Eleanor Gibson Graham, 1926. I guess John Graham was probably married 4 or 5 times. And yeah, we'll get to some portraits later that probably would not have, they would not get the same kind of reception today with the Me Too crowd and political correctness. It's titled Landscape with Horse and Rider. And again, we've got the horse and the rider. You can see that he's kind of riffing on De Chirico and maybe some of the other Pittura Metaphysica painters. Although this little Harlequin actually looks like it walked right out of a Blue Period Picasso, and it's very nicely drawn. Looks like I might have put some pen and ink on there. I was talking about Graham as a curator, and probably one of the things that he's best known for was putting a show together in 1942. I think it was called French and American Painters at the Macmillan and Company. This is titled Angel and Dude Chatron, 1959. Anyway, that was the first show that Jackson Pollock was exhibited in New York. And also that was the show that I think Lee Krasner was kind of debuted, and that was due to that show. Krasner got curious about who this guy Pollock was and saw that he lived a couple of blocks away, so she went over and introduced herself, and the rest is history. Also, I think Picasso, Braque, maybe Matisse, Rouault, some other top-notch Europeans were in the show, and also some pretty interesting Americans like Stuart Davis. as I was saying also, that Graham wrote a book on abstraction and spent a lot of time in Paris and used to brag about knowing and having met Picasso and Matisse and these people, and always kind of talked about and promoted the ideas of modern painting and that kind of stuff. And then I think somewhere in the mid-40s he kind of went through a change, and maybe he just felt cast out because he was kind of an outsider, or maybe he was just following his own sensibility. Started doing these strange portraits of women, and a lot of them have got ladies with cross eyes. Okay, they're calling this one Portrait of a Woman, but it's more like a mounted warrior. So this is graphite on paper, and it's probably something like 22 by 16. So this is more an example of the kind of thing I was talking about. The Beguiling Witch. It's a double-sided painting, 1959. Oil, ink, and graphite on parchment. Well, I think at some point Graham kind of came out as a mystic, a shaman. And he basically gave up his ideas about modernism, or a lot of them, and started spending all of his time kind of obsessively working on these, I guess what you would call neoclassical portraits of women. He was talking about the cross-eyed. This isn't exactly cross-eyed, but one of the eyes is kind of blank. Also, he's got these symbols and text in there. Also, a lot of the female portraits had wounds in their necks or in their wrists. Okay, we're gonna wrap up looking at this piece, which we actually saw at Stephen Harvey Gallery about 7 or 8 months ago, and I think a show called something like In the Dark of the Night. This is titled Woman of the Window. 1925 oil on canvas, 28 by 20. Well, eventually John Graham ended up marrying the mother of the Jana Sonabend, who is the mother-in-law of Leo Castelli, and when she passed away, she left a little codicil in her will saying that Leo and Ilyana had to provide John with an apartment at their townhouse. I believe it was 4 East 77th Street. And Milton Resnick, I think in his book Out of the Picture, talks about going and visiting Graham there and thinking that he was going to be going to a little apartment that was downstairs, but he actually ended up visiting John Graham in the boiler room, which is where Leo and Ilyana had decided that they were going to let him live. And that was kind of an interesting discussion. So this has been James Kalm reporting on the modern vanguards, John Graham, Willem de Kooning, and Arshile Gorky here at the SHIN Gallery on Grand and Orchard on the Lower East Side. You can like this, share, post it to all your social media sites, and you can leave your thoughts, ideas, comments, and criticisms and reviews below. And again, we want to say Congratulations to Fred Monk for his Netflix debut of Why Did You Kill Me? And I'm sure he would also be saying, thank you, Kate. Piers Lawrence, yeah.